Killer had been doing this job for 12 cycles, and she thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. Standing before the latest batch of survival trainees, she activated the holographic display with one of her 4 manipulator appendages. The image of Veros 9 rotated slowly in the air, all purple skies and jagged mountain ranges and forests that looked like they wanted to eat you. Because, well, they did. "Attention, trainees," she began, her vocal synthesizer translating her clicks and whistles into galactic common. "Welcome to Advanced Survival Protocol Training. For the next 72 hours you will be deployed on Veros 9, a Class 7 death world." The Thexian soldier in the front row went pale, his scales losing their vibrant blue sheen. The Vorlani commando's antenna drooped. Good. Fear meant they would listen. "Let me be absolutely clear," Kilray continued, pulling up images of the local fauna. "Everything on this planet wants to kill you. The Razorback Prowlers, 600 pounds of muscle and bad attitude. The Shriek Hawks with talons that can pierce hull plating. The Titan Serpents, which we have classified as mobile natural disasters. Your job is not to fight them. Your job is not to study them. Your job is to avoid them. Find shelter and survive until extraction." She paused for emphasis, making eye contact with each trainee. "The rules are simple. Avoid all wildlife. Find a defensible position. Wait for pickup. Do not engage. Do not attempt contact. Do not, under any circumstances, try to interact with the predators." That was when the human raised his hand. Kilray suppressed a sigh. There was always one. "Yes, Morrison." The human, a lean specimen with brown hair and an unsettling smile, stood up. "Quick question. Are any of the predators edible?" Kilra blinked all 6 of her eyes in sequence. "I what?" "Edible," Jack Morrison repeated, as if this was a perfectly reasonable question, like safe for human consumption. And follow-up question. "What is the Galactic Federation's policy on befriending apex predators? Is there paperwork, or is it more of a case-by-case thing?" The other trainees turned to stare at him. The Thexian made a sound like a deflating balloon. Kilra felt the beginning of what humans called a headache, despite not having a head in the traditional sense. "Morrison, the wildlife on Veros 9 will kill you. They are not food. They are not friends. They are active threats to your continued existence." Right, totally," Jack said, nodding seriously while making notes on his datapad. "But hypothetically, if one were to establish a positive rapport with, say, a Razorback Prowler, would that violate any specific regulations, or would it just be generally frowned upon?" "It would violate the regulation of you being alive," Kilra snapped. "Sit down, Morrison, and try to take this seriously. Your homeworld may have prepared you for harsh conditions, but Veros 9 is in an entirely different category." Jack sat down, still smiling that weird smile. Kilra made a mental note to monitor his feed extra carefully. Humans had a reputation for creative interpretations of the word avoid. She had a very bad feeling about this one. She really should have trusted that feeling. 6 hours into the exercise, Kilra sat in the monitoring station, cycling through the satellite feeds with growing satisfaction. Finally, a group that understood the assignment. Trainee 7, the Thexian, had wedged himself into a narrow cave fissure and appeared to be praying to at least 3 different deities. His vital signs showed elevated stress, but he was alive and stationary. Acceptable. Trainee 3, the Vorlani commando who had bragged extensively about his combat experience, had not moved more than 10 feet from his drop point. He had simply frozen, antenna flat against his skull, trembling. Not ideal, but at least he was not doing anything stupid. Trainee 12 had found a hollow tree and was presumably planning to stay there for the full 72 hours. Cowardly, but effective. Then Kilra switched to Trainee 4. What in the name of the founders is he doing? Jack Morrison was not hiding. Jack Morrison was not frozen in terror. Jack Morrison was not frozen in terror. Jack Morrison was not. Rose's visual sensors were malfunctioning, building something. She zoomed in closer, her appendages flying across the control panel. The image sharpened and her central heart sank. It was a trap, a sophisticated, well-designed snare trap constructed from vines, branches, and what appeared to be parts of his emergency kit. The trigger mechanism alone showed an understanding of physics and animal behavior that was frankly impressive. It was positioned on a game trail, camouflaged with local foliage, baited with something she could not quite identify. But the truly horrifying part, all the size of it. No, Killar whispered. No, 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 he is not that stupid. She checked the dimensions against her database. The trap was sized for something approximately 600 pounds. There was exactly one creature in this region that matched those specifications. Jack Morrison was trying to catch a Razorback Prowler. Her manipulators stabbed the communication button with more force than necessary. Morrison, this is Instructor Kilra. Respond immediately. There was a pause. Then the comm crackled to life. Oh hey Instructor. What is up? His tone was cheerful. Aggressively cheerful. Like someone discussing weekend plans, not sitting on a death world surrounded by things that considered him a convenient snack. What are you doing? Kilra demanded, her translator probably not capturing the full horror in her voice. Oh, just setting up camp, Jack replied brightly. She could see him on the feed now, wiping his hands on his pants with obvious satisfaction. Getting the lay of the land, assessing resources, you know. Standard survival stuff. That is a trap, Morrison. Oh yeah. Good eye, Instructor. I figured, why just survive when you can thrive, right? Protein is important for maintaining strength in high-stress situations. Kilra felt her secondary heart skip a beat. You are attempting to hunt a Razorback Prowler. Well, hunt is such an aggressive word, Jack said thoughtfully. I prefer to think of it as an invitation to dinner, where the Prowler is the dinner, not the guest. Although I guess technically the Prowler is also the guest, since it is coming to my trap, so really it is a dual-role situation. Morrison, listen to me very carefully, Kilra interrupted, her voice dropping to what she hoped was a terrifying register. Razorback Prowlers are apex predators. They have killed trained soldiers. They have killed beings 3 times your size wearing full combat armor. What you are attempting is not survival training, it is suicide. I appreciate the concern, Instructor. Really I do, Jack said. And he actually sounded sincere. But I have been reading the survival manual, and it says we should utilize available resources. Well, there are resources walking around on 4 legs all over this place. Seems wasteful not to make use of them. The manual means plants, Morrison, edible vegetation. Yeah, but here is the thing, Jack continued, as if she had not spoken. I did a quick nutritional analysis, and the plant life here is super low on calories and probably would give me indigestion, whereas meat, now that is efficient energy. Plus, I have always wanted to try exotic game, so quick question, do you have any seasoning recommendations? I have got salt and some pepper in my kit, but I feel like Prowler might benefit from like a marinade situation, or maybe a dry rub. Kilra closed the communication channel and sat in silence for a long moment. Then she opened Morrison's file and hovered her appendage over the fail and immediate extraction button. She hesitated. No, she would give him 1 more hour, just to see if he would come to his senses. Surely even a human was not this insane, right? Kilra was reviewing the other trainees' progress, feeling cautiously optimistic that perhaps Morrison had decided to behave himself when the alarms shattered the quiet of the monitoring station. Warning, Trainee 4 vital signs critical. Heart rate elevated. Adrenaline spike. Possible combat engagement. She lunged for the controls, pulling up his feed with all 4 appendages working simultaneously. The bio readouts were spiking into the red zone. Then, impossibly, they began to stabilize. Still elevated, but no longer critical. What happened? She demanded to the empty room, already rewinding the footage. What she saw would haunt her for the rest of her career. The timestamp showed 18 minutes ago. Jack had been crouched by his trap, doing something with a knife and a piece of wood. Then he had gone very still, his head turning slowly to the left. A Razorback Prowler emerged from the tree line. 600 pounds of corded muscle, claws like industrial cutting tools, fangs designed by evolution specifically for ripping flesh. Its mottled gray and black fur rippled as it moved, each step placing massive paws on the ground with predatory grace. The creature's 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows, focused on the small human with unmistakable intent. Kilra watched her appendages frozen on the controls, expecting to witness a tragedy. Jack Morrison did not run. He stood up, slowly. Then, in a move that defied every survival instinct that billions of years of evolution should have given him, he spread his arms wide, making himself larger. He opened his mouth, and screamed. Not a scream of fear, a scream of challenge, of rage. A sound that Kilra's translator could not even process, just raw human aggression condensed into audio form. The Razorback Prowler stopped. Its ears pinned back, it tilted its massive head, and Kilra could have sworn the creature looked confused. Nothing had ever challenged it before. Everything on Veros 9 with any sense ran from Razorback Prowlers. Jack Morrison bent down, picked up a rock the size of his fist, and threw it directly at the Prowler's face. It hit the creature square on its snout. "Oh no," Kilra whispered. "Oh no, no, no." The Prowler's confusion transformed instantly into fury. It roared, a sound that registered on the seismic sensors and charged. Jack ran. Finally some sense. But he was not running away. He was running toward a cluster of boulders, leading the Prowler into terrain he had clearly selected. He had planned this. The absolute lunatic had planned this. What followed was the most insane display of combat Kilra had ever witnessed, and she had seen Vorlani death matches. Jack used the rocks ducking and weaving, making the Prowler's size work against it. He had a sharpened stick, probably the thing he had been carving earlier, and he used it like a soldier, jabbing at sensitive areas. Eyes, joints, the soft tissue behind the front legs. The Prowler was stronger, faster, better armed. But Jack was smarter, and he fought with a creativity that seemed to offend the very concept of fair combat. He used dirt, throwing it in the creature's eyes. He used his emergency cord as a tripwire. He stabbed, he dodged. He actually climbed onto the Prowler's back at one point and hung on while it thrashed, driving his improvised spear into the base of its skull. The Prowler collapsed. Jack fell off, rolled and lay on his back for a moment, breathing hard. Then he sat up, looked at the dead apex predator and pumped his fist in the air. Yes. Oh yes. That is what I am talking about. Kilra realized. She had not breathed during the entire sequence. But it was not over. Oh no. It got so much worse. Jack pulled out his knife and began field dressing the Prowler with practiced efficiency. Within 20 minutes he had a fire going. Within 40 he was cooking strips of meat on flat rocks around the flames. The smell must have carried because Kilra's sensors picked up movement in the tree line. 2 more Razorback Prowlers emerged, drawn by the scent of cooking flesh and probably planning to claim the kill. Kilra reached for the emergency extraction button. Jack looked up, saw them, and did not reach for his spear. He held up a piece of cooked meat. "Hey there, buddies," he called out. "You guys hungry? I have got plenty to share. Come on, do not be shy." The Prowlers approached cautiously, their body language confused. This was wrong. Pre did not offer food. Pre ran. Pre screamed and died. Jack tossed a piece of meat to the closer one. It landed a few feet in front of the creature. The Prowler sniffed it, picked it up in its jaws, ate it. Jack tossed another piece, closer to himself. Then another. Within 10 minutes both Razorback Prowlers were sitting by Jack's fire and Kilra could barely comprehend this, like domestic pets waiting for scraps. Jack was talking to them in a soothing voice, calling one biscuit and the other gravy, hand-feeding them pieces of their dead companion. "There we go. Good biscuit. Yes, you are a terrifying apex predator. Yes, you are. Who is a deadly killing machine. You are. Gravy. Do not be greedy, buddy. There is enough for everyone." Kilra sat in absolute silence, staring at the screen. Then she reached for her emergency stash of Thexian mood stabilizers and took 3 times the recommended dose. Kilra had stopped questioning reality somewhere around hour 24. Now at hour 36 she simply stared at the satellite imagery with the resigned acceptance of someone whose understanding of the universe had been fundamentally shattered. Jack Morrison had built a civilization. The campsite occupied a clearing near a stream, positioned with clear sightlines in all directions. A proper fire pit, ringed with stones, burned steadily at the center. Next to it a smoking rack made from green branches held strips of meat in various stages of preservation. A water purification system, jury-rigged from his emergency kit and some hollowed-out logs, trickled clean water into a container made from a Prowler's skull. The shelter was the most offensive part. Jack had constructed a lean-to using branches and broad leaves, then insulated and waterproofed it with Prowler pelts. 3 pelts to be exact, which meant somewhere along the way he had killed a third one. The hides were stretched and drying on frames. The man was preparing inventory. And lounging on either side of his shelter, like grotesque guardian statues, were Biscuit and Gravy. The two Razorback Prowlers were asleep. One of them was on its back paws in the air, in a pose Kilra had only seen in domesticated animals. The other had its massive head resting on its paws, occasionally twitching its ears when insects flew too close. Jack had given apex predators nicknames, and they had accepted them. But wait, it got worse. Perched in the trees around the camp were Shriek Hawks, 7 of them by Kilra's count. Shriek Hawks, the aerial terrors of Veros 9, known for their aggression and their complete inability to be tamed. The Galactic Zoo Consortium had tried for decades. Multiple handlers had lost appendages in the attempt. Jack Morrison had apparently solved the problem by sharing his dinner. As Killer watched, one of the hawks dropped from its perch and landed near Jack, depositing something shiny at his feet. A piece of quartz, polished smooth by the stream. Jack looked up from the fish he was cleaning, grinned and held out a piece of meat. "Oh, thank you, Mabel. This is beautiful. You are such a good girl." The Shriek Hawk, a creature with a documented kill count in the double digits, made a pleased chirping sound and ate delicately from his hand. Kilra noticed that Jack was wearing a necklace. Upon closer inspection it appeared to be made entirely of shiny rocks, bits of metal, and what looked like colorful beetle shells. Gifts, from the birds, he had trained them to bring him presents. A proximity alarm chimed, indicating communication requests from other trainees. Trainee 7, the Thexian, was sending his 5th distress signal. "Please extract me," he whimpered into his communicator. "I cannot do this anymore. I have not eaten. I have not slept. There are sounds. Horrible sounds. I want to go home." Trainee 3, the Vorlani commando, was barely coherent. "There is something wrong on this planet," he babbled, his antenna quivering. "I saw something, a demon. A human warlord commanding beasts. He has an army of monsters. They patrol his territory. I think he is building a kingdom. Send military support. This is beyond survival training. This is a hostile takeover." Kilra checked his location and trajectory. He had wandered near Jack's camp and apparently witnessed the morning feeding routine. "That is just Morrison," she muttered, closing the channel. Trainee 9 was simply crying and requesting immediate extraction for psychological reasons. Kilra's communicator chimed. It was Jack. She considered ignoring it. She considered many things. Then she accepted the call. "Hey, Instructor Kilra." Jack's face appeared on screen, sun-tanned and smiling. A Shriek Hawk perched on his shoulder. "Just checking in. Wanted to let you know everything is going great out here. Really great. I have got food, water, shelter, and I have made some friends. Biscuit and Gravy say hello, by the way." One of the prowlers lifted its head and yawned, displaying teeth the size of daggers. "Actually," Jack continued, "I wanted to ask if the extraction team needs anything when they come to pick us up. I have got extra smoked meat, some really nice pelts, and I think I can finish another water filter by tomorrow if anyone wants one. Oh, and I have been collecting these really pretty stones that Mabel and her family keep bringing me. They would make excellent gifts." Killer opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Morrison," she finally managed. "You are aware this is a survival exercise, not a vacation, correct?" "Oh, totally," Jack said cheerfully. "And I am surviving, thriving, even. Actually, I have been thinking, 72 hours is not very long. If you wanted to extend the training period, I would be totally fine with that. I am getting a lot out of this experience. Very educational. Character building." Behind him a Shriek Hawk landed with another shiny object. Jack absently accepted it and added it to a growing pile. In the monitoring station, Instructor Velkan, a Zynthian who had been observing silently, made a choking sound that might have been laughter. "I will take bets," he announced to the room. "How long before Morrison domesticates a Titan Serpent?" "That is not funny," Killer snapped. "I will give 3-to-1 odds he tries," Instructor Pelamoth added from her station. 5-to-1 he succeeds, Velkan countered. Kilra glared at both of them, but she did not take the bet. She had a horrible feeling they were right. Hour 60 began with what Killer would later describe in her official report as a significant emotional event. The seismic sensors triggered first, detecting something massive moving through the western forest. Then came the thermal spike, Then every single danger indicator on the monitoring board lit up like a festival display. Titan Serpent, Kilra breathed, her appendages going numb. In Morrison's sector, Titan Serpents were not supposed to be in this region. They were solitary, territorial, and typically remained in the volcanic highlands where the heat suited their metabolism. This one was over 30 feet long, with scales like overlapping shields and a head the size of a personnel transport. Its mouth could swallow a full-grown Verlani whole, and it had on multiple documented occasions. Scramble extraction. Kilra barked at Velkan. Get a team to Morrison's location now. On it Velkan replied, his usual humor gone. Even he understood this was genuinely lethal. Kilra pulled up Jack's feed, dreading what she would see. The human was by his fire turning the spit where some kind of fish was roasting. Biscuit and Gravy were alert now. On their feet, hackles raised, the shriek hawks had gone silent, which was never a good sign. The Titan Serpent emerged from the tree line like a nightmare given physical form. Jack looked up. Kilra expected panic. She expected him to run, to hide, to at least have the basic survival instinct to recognize when he was catastrophically outmatched. Instead, Jack's expression shifted to something Kilra's translator database identified as annoyance. "Oh, come on," Jack shouted at the serpent. "Seriously? I just got the camp organized. Read the room, buddy." The Titan Serpent's forked tongue flickered out. Tasting the air, it began moving forward, clearly identifying Jack as food. Jack Morrison, that absolute lunatic, grabbed a burning branch from his fire and charged. Not away. Toward. "No!" Kilra shrieked at the screen as if he could hear her. "No, no, no, you idiot human!" Jack was screaming. Kilra's translator was working overtime, flashing error messages, as it tried to process what it delicately termed extremely creative profanity involving anatomically improbable suggestions and multiple violations of physics. The Titan Serpent reared back, clearly not expecting its meal to sprint at it while on fire and cursing. Then Biscuit and Gravy charged too, roaring their own challenges. The shriek hawks launched from the trees 7 streaks of fury dive-bombing the serpent's eyes with talons extended. What followed was less a battle and more a riot. Jack swung his flaming branch at the serpent's face, actually making contact and singeing scales. The serpent struck at him with fangs that could pierce armor, but Biscuit intercepted, tackling the massive head from the side. Gravy went for the body, claws raking across scales with a sound like metal on metal. The hawks were relentless, diving again and again, forcing the serpent to constantly flinch and shake its head. Jack rolled under a strike, came up and stabbed the burning branch into the soft tissue under the serpent's jaw. The creature shrieked, a sound that shattered 3 monitoring sensors, and thrashed wildly. "Yeah, how do you like that?" Jack screamed. "This is my camp, my territory. You want some more? Come on." He sounded, Kilra realized with dawning horror, like he was enjoying this. The Titan Serpent, bleeding from multiple wounds and clearly deciding this meal was not worth the effort, began to retreat. It was actually retreating. The Titan Serpent, an apex predator, with no natural enemies. Retreating from a human and his ridiculous menagerie. Jack chased it for several yards, waving his branch. "Yeah, that is what I thought. You better run, do not come back unless you are ready to be polite." The serpent crashed back into the forest and disappeared. Jack stood there, breathing hard, still holding his branch, covered in dirt and what might have been serpent blood. Biscuit and Gravy trotted back to him, looking incredibly pleased with themselves. The hawks landed in the trees, preening. "Good job, team," Jack announced, patting each prowler on their massive heads. "Excellent work. We really showed that guy." High fives all around. Kilra was about to cancel the extraction team and possibly lie down for several hours when Jack's posture changed. He was looking at something on the ground. "Oh wow," he said, walking toward a cluster of rocks near where the serpent had been. "Nope, not rocks. Those are eggs," Velkan said quietly from his station. "Titan serpent eggs. It must have dropped them during the fight." There were 4 of them, each the size of Jack's head, with shells that gleamed like polished obsidian. Jack carefully picked one up, examining it with obvious fascination. "Hey guys, look at this. These are amazing." He was already carrying them back to his camp. "He would not," Kilra whispered. Jack arranged the eggs near his fire, banking the coals to provide steady heat. He tested the temperature with his hand, adjusted the placement, then sat back looking satisfied. "There we go," he said to Biscuit and Gravy. "We are going to be parents. Well, adoptive parents. Or maybe godparents. I will figure out the terminology later." "Extraction team," Kilra said into her communicator, her voice hollow. "Cancel the emergency response." "Instructor," the team leader responded, confused. "We are 2 minutes out. He is fine. He is more than fine. He just fought off a Titan Serpent and is now incubating its eggs." There was a long silence on the comm. "Say again," the team leader asked carefully. "You heard me. Return to base. Morrison is apparently starting a zoo." Kilra closed the channel, opened her desk drawer and pulled out a flask of Regalian whiskey she had been saving for her retirement. She decided retirement could wait. The whiskey could not. The extraction shuttle touched down at the designated coordinates at precisely hour 72, right on schedule. Kilra stood at the ramp, datapad in hand, prepared to debrief what she assumed would be a group of exhausted, humbled but successfully surviving trainees. The first to arrive was Trainee 7, the Thexian. He looked like he had aged 10 cycles in 3 days. His scales were dull, his eyes sunken, and he was making a continuous high-pitched keening sound. He stumbled up the ramp without a word and immediately curled into a ball in the corner of the shuttle. Trainee 3, the Vorlani commando, was next. He kept looking over his shoulder, flinching at every sound. His antennae were bent at odd angles, and he was muttering something about the Beastmaster and never again. He had to be physically guided onto the shuttle. Trainee 9 was crying, still, or possibly again. It was hard to tell. Trainee 12 emerged from the forest looking like a skeleton, having apparently survived on nothing but water and fear. One by one they boarded, traumatized, filthy, starving. Some were injured. All were clearly reconsidering their career choices. Kilra was doing a head count when she heard it, a sound that did not belong in this environment. Whistling. Someone was whistling a cheerful tune, and it was getting closer. Jack Morrison emerged from the tree line, and Kilra's multiple brains struggled to process what she was seeing. He looked healthy, actually healthy. His skin had color, his eyes were bright, and he had clearly not missed any meals. He was wearing a coat, an actual coat, made from expertly tanned Prowler pelts, lined with some kind of soft down. His pack was full to bursting with supplies. He carried several bundles of smoked meat tied with vine. Around his neck, the ridiculous necklace of shiny objects glinted in the sun. But that was not the worst part. Behind him, walking in an orderly procession like some kind of deranged parade, were his friends. Biscuit and Gravy padded along on either side of him, their massive forms somehow managing to look docile. The 7 Shriek Hawks flew in formation overhead, occasionally swooping down to perch on Jack's shoulders or the Prowlers' backs, and bringing up the rear, carrying what appeared to be additional supplies in woven baskets strapped to its shell, was a lumshell. A lumshell, a gentle 6-legged herbivore the size of a small transport, known for being skittish and impossible to approach. Jack had turned it into a pack animal. "Good morning, Instructor Kilra," Jack called out cheerfully, waving. "Beautiful day for an extraction, is it not?" The other trainees, already on the shuttle, pressed themselves against the far wall as the menagerie approached. The Stexians started keening louder. The extraction team, hardened military personnel who had seen combat on a dozen worlds, took several steps backward. Jack reached the ramp and gestured to his companions. "Sit, guys. Stay." Biscuit and Gravy sat. The Shriek Hawks landed in a neat row. The lumshell stopped and lowered its head peacefully. "I have got some stuff to load up," Jack announced, starting to transfer his supplies. "Hope there is room. I have got about 40 pounds of smoked prowler meat, some really nice pelts, the water filters I mentioned, the stone collection, and oh, the eggs. Got to be careful with those. They need to stay warm." He produced the 4 Titan Serpent eggs from an insulated pouch, each one wrapped carefully in soft leaves. One of the extraction team members made a strangled sound. Jack began offering packages of jerky to the team. "Anyone want some? It is really good. I used a dry rub with some local herbs I found. Totally safe. I tested them all." "No? You sure?" "More for me, I guess." Every single person declined, staring at him with expressions ranging from horror to disbelief. Jack looked genuinely disappointed. He turned to Kilra. So, I have got a question. What is the policy on bringing friends back to base? Because Biscuit and Gravy here have really bonded with me and I feel like it would be cruel to just abandon them. Also the Hawks, and Thelma. Thelma? Kilra asked weakly. Jack patted the Lumshell affectionately. I named her yesterday. She is very sweet. Loves having her shell scratched. Morrison, Kilra said, her voice carefully controlled. You cannot bring apex predators back to the training facility. But they are domesticated now. Jack protested. Look how well behaved they are. Biscuit, shake. The 600-pound killing machine lifted one massive paw. Jack beamed. See. Perfect manners. Kilra closed all 6 of her eyes and counted to 10 in 3 different languages. Morrison, she said finally. How did you survive? Jack looked confused by the question. What do you mean? You gave us very clear instructions. Avoid all wildlife. Find shelter. Wait for extraction. That is exactly what I did. You fought a Titan Serpent. Well, yeah, but only because it came to me. I was avoiding it until it showed up uninvited. You hunted Razorback Prowlers. No, Jack corrected, holding up a finger. I befriended Razorback Prowlers. Totally different thing. You said avoid wildlife. I made friends instead. Friends are not wildlife. They are friends. The other trainees stared at him, with expressions that suggested their sanity was hanging by a thread. Jack shrugged, smiling that unsettling smile. Look, I just figured, why fight the environment when you can work with it? Everything here wants to eat or kill you if you are prey. So do not be prey. Be a neighbor, offer snacks. Build community. It is basic social skills, really. Kilra looked at this human, standing there in his handmade coat, surrounded by creatures that had killed trained soldiers, holding eggs that would hatch into monsters, offering jerky to traumatized aliens. Get on the shuttle, Morrison, she said tiredly. Can I at least bring the eggs? Fine. Yes. Just get on the shuttle. Jack grinned and started loading his gear. He paused at the ramp looking back at his animal companions. Bye guys. I will visit. I promise. You all be good. He blew them a kiss. Biscuit whined. Gravy's tail drooped. The Shriek-hawks made sad chirping sounds. As the shuttle lifted off, Killer watched Jack press his face against the window, waving at the creatures below like a child leaving summer camp. She was definitely going to need more whiskey. The report took Kilra 6 hours to write, and she rewrote it 4 times because she kept using phrases like impossible and defies all logic, and I questioned my own sanity, which did not sound professional. The final version was 32 pages long, not including the video attachments. Command did not believe her. Instructor Kilra, Admiral Thexball said over the secure comm channel, his tone suggesting he thought she had suffered some kind of mental break. You are claiming that a single human trainee not only survived Veros 9, but domesticated multiple apex predators, befriended an untamable bird species, fought off a Titan Serpent, and left the planet with eggs he intends to raise. That is correct, sir, Kilra replied, keeping her voice steady. That is not possible. I have 47 hours of video footage, sir. Time-stamped, from multiple angles. I have also attached the testimony of 12 witnesses and the medical report showing Morrison suffered minor scratches and what he described as a really cool bruise. There was a long silence. Send me everything, the Admiral said finally. 3 days later, Kilracker is summoned to headquarters for an emergency meeting. The room was packed. Admirals, generals, the head of galactic military training, a very angry Vorlani ambassador, and somehow, representatives from the Galactic Xenobiology Institute. They had watched the footage. All of it. This changes everything we know about human-animal interaction protocols. Dr. Vansara from Xenobiology was saying, her appendages moving excitedly over a holographic display showing Jack's approach patterns. The confidence signaling, the food-sharing behavior, the establishment of pack hierarchy with himself as alpha despite being physically weaker. It is revolutionary. It is cheating. The Vorlani ambassador snapped, his antenna quivering with rage. Humans have unfair biological advantages. This Morrison creature possesses abilities that violate the spirit of fair competition. What abilities? Kilra asked, genuinely curious. He is not stronger than a Vorlani. He is not faster. He has no natural weapons. Audacity, the ambassador shouted. Reckless, insane, unreasonable audacity. It is a biological weapon. No sane species would charge at a Titan Serpent with a burning stick. This is an unfair advantage. Several beings in the room made sounds of agreement. The head of military training, a grizzled Zynthian named General Koresh, leaned forward. We want to interview Morrison. His techniques may have applications for survival training, diplomatic first contact scenarios, and possibly special operations. Which was how, 2 days later, Jack Morrison found himself in a lecture hall in front of 200 military personnel, giving a presentation titled Making Friends in Hostile Environments. Kilra attended partly out of professional obligation and partly because she needed to see this. Jack stood at the podium, completely at ease, wearing a civilian outfit but with his Prowler pelt coat draped over his shoulders like a trophy. So the main thing to understand, Jack was saying, is that most predators respect confidence. They are used to prey running away. When you stand your ground, you confuse them. Confusion creates hesitation. Hesitation creates opportunity. Also, and I cannot stress this enough, everybody likes snacks. This is a universal truth. Does not matter if you are human, Vorlani, or a 600-pound murder machine. Offer quality snacks and you are halfway to friendship. A Thexian officer raised a shaking hand. But what if the predator attacks anyway? Then you fight smart, Jack said cheerfully. Use terrain, use tools, use spite if you have to. But honestly, it rarely gets to that point if you approach with the right energy, confidence, kindness, and a willingness to share your jerky. That is the formula. The room was silent, every being trying to process this information. After the presentation, Kilra caught up with Jack in the hallway. Morrison, I need to inform you that you have been officially banned from participating in survival training on Kelvor 4 Draxus Prime and the Ashara Wilds. Jack looked genuinely hurt. Why? I did not even do anything on those planets. You suggested, in your post-mission interview, that you could, and I quote, definitely make friends with the wildlife there too. Command has decided this is unacceptable. But the wildlife on Kelvor 4 is supposed to be really interesting. I read they have these pack hunters with collective intelligence. Imagine the possibilities. No, Killar said firmly. Absolutely not. Morrison, I am updating the training manual because of you. There is now a section specifically for human trainees. She pulled up her datapad and showed him. Section 7.3. Additional protocols for human participants. Rule 1. Please just follow the original instructions. Rule 2. Making friends with wildlife is not an acceptable interpretation of avoid wildlife. Rule 3. No, seriously, please just follow the instructions. Jack read it and grinned. You know we are going to find loopholes, right? I know, Kilra said wearily. I know. That evening, alone in her quarters, Kilra poured herself a generous glass of Rigelian whiskey and pulled up the footage one more time. She watched Jack charge the Titan Serpent, watched him hand-feed biscuit and gravy, watched him build his ridiculous civilization in 3 days. Her communicator chimed. It was a video message from Jack. She almost deleted it. Then, against her better judgment, she opened it. Jack's face appeared on screen, grinning. Behind him was what appeared to be a sanctuary habitat. Hey Instructor, just wanted to show you this. They moved biscuit and gravy to a protected reserve, and they let me visit. Look. The camera panned to show the 2 Razorback Prowlers. When they saw Jack, their ears perked up, and they bounded over like excited puppies, tails wagging. Tails wagging. Apex predators with wagging tails. Jack laughed, scratching behind their ears while they rumbled with contentment. They remember me. Isn't that amazing? Oh, and the eggs are doing great. The Xenobiology Institute says they should hatch in about 40 days. They are letting me help raise them. How cool is that? Kilra took a long drink of her whiskey. It was the most entertaining training session I have ever supervised, she admitted to the empty room. Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out the bottle for a refill. She was definitely going to need it. Somewhere on Veros 9, a lumshell named Thelma grazed peacefully in a clearing, wondering when her strange, tailless friend would visit again. And in the forest beyond, the remaining Shriek Hawks had started bringing shiny objects to any human-shaped thing they could find, much to the confusion of the next training group. Jack Morrison had fundamentally altered an entire ecosystem in 72 hours. Kilra raised her glass in a tired salute. "To humans," she muttered. "May the Founders help us all." The end.